So for everyone who's attending, Dylan, Simon, and myself, this is our. Well, we're just going to make this up as we go along a bit. We've got some slides which we'll go through, and then we'll take it from there. But if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat, and we'll try and keep an eye on that as well. But also just raise your hands too if you've got any questions you want to ask us anything, and we'll do our best to answer them. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Ooh, I'm just going to jump out and jump in again because I've logged in with the wrong tenant. Be right back.
Okay. Wait for Simon to join again. Yeah, it's always fun, isn't it? Just making sure you get access to chat. So we've got various settings which, stop you accessing just chat unless you're finding the right tenant. Right. Okay. Maybe we should give it a couple of minutes. Actually, think about it. There's a few people joining us.
Simon, can you hear me all right?
I certainly can. Hello, Sarah.
Yeah.
I've only thinking about you last night, my lovely.
Oh, that's why my ears were burning.
Yes, indeed. I have one thing to say to you. Badminton.
What? Do you know, I keep seeing it pop up in my chat. I'm still on the group chat. I'm like, I'm going to have to rejoin.
Go and join.
I will.
And anybody else that lives within driving distance of North Ferriby, which kind of probably doesn't narrow it down that much or completely.
Right. Should we kick off then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So thanks for joining us. That's the right day, isn't it yet? For another M365 North. We've got sessions booked in for the next few months. We're just populating the calendar and the schedule, so we'll start pushing those out via Meetup. So we're going to be chatting about this is us. This is our mission, I guess, is just to help educate and share expertise around M365 and around other things around that, around Microsoft sort of cloud platform as well. And we aim to be sort of for people into technology, but for people in the business as well. And our aim is to engage yourselves and users, develop the next wave of talent. This is the team, Dylan, Simon, and myself. And you can keep in touch with us. We need to get something on Blue Sky, don't we, actually? So
yeah, we really do, because I completely abandoned Twitter at this point.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. So the best way to keep up is on Meetup, so M365-North. And we've just become part of the sort of Microsoft Azure kind of Meetup group now as well. So Microsoft are sponsoring and supporting this user group through that. So that's really cool. And the topic of today is the agenda is to talk about sort of this Copilot State of the Nation, aiming to close about 7:30. Invariably, we'll probably roll on after that, but that's the plan. And just a couple of events. One event really that I just wanted to highlight is the European Collab Summit coming up end of May. And it's going to be a great session. It's going to be a bit different this year because they've got sort of the business applications, the Power Platform, alongside AI and the Azure side, as well as the collaboration M365 piece as well. And I think the Monday starts with a full day of tutorials before the main event on the 27th to 28th.
Plus, I'm not going to be there, which is the first time in quite a few years.
I know. It's normally me who's not there, and it's a shame. We normally drive over, so I shall continue that theme.
Good man, keep up the Simon presence.
Yeah, there's an obligatory quota of Simons.
Yes.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, just a quick question as you've got this on slide. Have they announced anything about Scottish Summit this year yet? Do you know?
So I think it's going to be. It won't be Scottish Summit. It will be South Coast Summit this year. Yeah. They have they've put out a schedule of when they're going to be announcing things, but yeah, it's definitely kind of. I'll see if I can grab a link to it, but there's definitely a call for speakers opening up soon. So yeah, it's going to be happening in October, I believe. But I'll see if I can dig some dates out for you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
well,
And it's
yeah, well,
much closer than Aberdeen, where Scottish Summit was. Well, unless you're in Aberdeen, obviously.
yes.
I think for me, Aberdeen's actually closer than South Coast.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's true.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a chat about sort of Copilot Center Nation in particular, following the announcement of, the naming is brilliant. Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, which is now being added to your Microsoft 365 license. So we're going to talk about that versus the all-you-can-eat Microsoft 365 Copilot. So yeah, the similarities in the names is not lost on me actually. So yeah, we're going to talk about the differences, and just really give you some ideas and tips and techniques, demo some stuff, just so you can kind of see what the difference is between the two sides. And I'm going to hand over to whose ever slide this was.
This
Oh,
is mine, but I
Oh,
think
good.
we can all talk around this one, can't we? So I have a question for you. Is you've probably all seen this hype cycle. And I would, if you think that we are still on the upward slope, stick your hands in the air or stick a thumbs up in there. Okay, so if you think we're right at the peak, or are we going down the other side, kind of like a roller coaster? Where do you think people think we are at the moment?
Down the other
Okay,
side.
yeah. And does anybody think we are after the very low, climbing back up to the plateau of productivity? Does anybody think we're there yet?
Yeah, see, I think we're going. I think we're going up there towards this slope of enlightenment. I think that's
Okay.
what.
It's an interesting point. And I ask this question every time, and everybody has a different opinion. And around about Christmas, I was asking people, and we thought we were on the peak of inflated expectations. And it was kind of like a roller coaster where some people are on the part of the train that's still going uphill, and some people are on the part of the train which is starting to dive downhill. You're on the same train, but and you're going to end up at the same place eventually, but your perception was quite different. So it's a interesting point to think about where we are with the journey of around AI, because I still think we're still in the earlier stages of it. But everybody has differences, and some of this in different areas, it's probably at different points.
I guess that's the thing. I suppose it doesn't depend on your definition of what it is that the end. Like if it's AI, then maybe we are. But if it's sort of more the generative, people are using this. Using the capability, the technology. It's becoming more ubiquitous, especially in the M365 space. So yeah, I think maybe the agents and that side is coming, but yeah, but everyone will have different viewpoints, won't they, depending on how embedded these technologies are in the organization as well. So yeah.
And one of the things I think we'll see is that you're no longer necessarily paying a premium for AI functionality. Sometimes it's now started to be bundled with the product rather than being an addition. So I guess you might call that an example of the slope of enlightenment, because people are getting it anyway, so they're paying for it, so they may as well use it.
And of course, yeah, AI isn't a single technology. We've got a whole chunk of technologies here. Everyone sort of, the public mind understands the large language models, especially ChatGPT. But we've been knocking around with AI for a while. So this is going to be a diffused hype cycle, depending on which part of AI we're thinking about. But I still think we've got some shocks to come. I think the legislative framework isn't sorted yet. The limits of AI are not sorted. At the same time, the technology is evolving really, really rapidly. So I think we've got some more disillusionment to come. That's my view.
Well, if you held Nvidia stock about a month ago, you'd have definitely been heading towards the trough of disillusionment, wouldn't you?
Yes,
Where
maybe so. But you know, I've been proved to be wrong with tech before, so yeah.
So yeah, now let's talk about Microsoft Copilot Chat versus Microsoft 365 Copilot. I've got rid of the Microsoft 365 out of the heading there. But you know, what is the difference? So Microsoft recently announced Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, where they're bringing Copilot and generative AI capabilities into Microsoft 365. And so on the left-hand side, if you look at the dots, we've got you know, a number of really nice features coming into the free. I say free versus it being included in your Microsoft 365 license. But the main, I guess, the main sort of point to make is that it's bringing the ability to use Copilot generative AI, but not with your work data. It's web grounded, so it's grounded in against the Bing search indexes. It's powered by GPT-4o, but it's not bringing together the reasoning over your work information, your emails, your documents in SharePoint. But at the same time, it's bringing in Copilot pages. It's allowing you to sort of reason over file uploads, though there are some limits that apply to that. Bringing in, being able to generate code, generate images. Again, there's some limits there as well, and allowing you to create SharePoint agents as well. But I believe those are, you'll need to have billing and pay as you go switched on for that. But if we look at that compared to, but also as well, the Copilot control system, being able to sort of protect your data and put some controls around Microsoft Copilot. So people, users can start to understand, start to learn how to prompt, start to get used to these tools within the Microsoft 365 platform. And you can sort of compare that with Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is the $30 per user per month, where you're allowed to reason over the AI, generative AI is reasoning over your work. It's grounded in your work data. It's creating this thing called the semantic index, which is used by Microsoft 365 Copilot to improve the results that it's getting with your data. So that's like being able to access your email, your Teams conversations, your meetings, your documents as well. And then you can, from there, create agents, SharePoint agents, create agents using Copilot Studio, and build out agents grounded on that work data, which I think that's where it really gets interesting. But of course, you've got all the capability then of Copilot in your Office apps, in Microsoft Teams, in Outlook, in Word, and we'll show some demos there as well. The bit at the bottom of the personal assistant section where it's sort of pre-built M365 agents. So these are, we'll talk about these in a bit more detail, but these are agents which Microsoft are building. The facilitator agent, for example, allows you to in meetings create AI meeting minutes and notes in real time, almost real time, as people are having that meeting. And then you've got the full control of Copilot with analytics to measure usage. Now added as well as the SharePoint Advanced Management functionality too. So you can start looking to use that to help kind of deploy Copilot, making sure that you're protecting data, being able to access reports around what sites are being shared, and start being able to measure that ROI.
Just for a little bit of clarity as well, if you have a personal M365 subscription, you actually get Copilot inside the apps now as well, which is a slight difference in there. It's been added, the price is increased, but you now get the Copilot inside of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So just to make the picture even more confusing.
Yep.
Simon, anything to add?
No, I think that's all good. I'll show people some things later on, but maybe it is worth adding. I mean, the increase in price is significant You know, it's like a 30 or 40% uplift on the price of a personal or a family subscription. So it's not trivial, but you get a lot of bang for your buck with that.
Yeah, you used to have to pay £20 per user extra for it. Now you get it bundled with a family subscription, so it's better value than
about
paying
£20 a year more. Yeah.
Well, no, it used to be £20 per user per month. So if you had a
Yeah.
family subscription with 5 of you, that's a stupid amount of money. Whereas now it's a little bit more affordable, but it is a significant uplift. And people have been complaining about the difference in price.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. All right. Thanks for that. So yeah, Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. What does that look like? Well, you access it through copilot.cloud@Microsoft. It's available to all users with or all Microsoft 365 licensed users. It's allowing you to have access to generative AI within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, but it's via the Microsoft 365 app. And now, if you've got a personal 365 license, then you've got it within the Office tools as well. But there's, the main thing to is this fact that you haven't got any the AI is not grounded in your work, and those agents are available via pay as you go. Simon, I've got a demo. Well, the next slide is talking about a Copilot Chat demo. I didn't know if that's what you were thinking for your prompting. Would that?
I think they'll be fine. We'll work around any potential overlap, but I'm more thinking about the process and the additional capabilities.
Oh, look at this, Dylan. I think Dylan, if you put this in.
Okay, I've got something here that illustrates it quite nicely. I'm going to drop acid. So if I just take the screen for a moment, I can show you some of those things. And then if Simon H, if you've got anything to add to it, you can direct me in my prompting, but I've got something ready to go.
Go for it.
So I'm just going to seize control of the screen. This is going to be very confusing because we're passing the screen backwards and forwards between each other, which is inevitably going to confuse us. So here we are in the URL you saw before. And the crucial thing to notice at the top is the button of work versus web. And it is a significant difference. So if we were to ask a question of tell me about hydrochloric acid, I'm going to ask this. On this particular tenant, I have M365 Copilot licenses lit up, so you'll get a slight difference. If you haven't got that, you are stuck with the grounded in the web part. That's the difference, I believe. So if I make this prompt now, I will get some generic information from the internet about hydrochloric acid. Basically, it's nasty stuff, don't drink it. And you can see that's all we get. However, if I was to go across to work, I have uploaded a whole load of chemical safety data sheets, MSDN sheet. What are they called? Material Safety Data, MSDS. I keep saying MSDN.
Yes.
So I have uploaded a bunch of those. And so if I make this search, same search, and I'll expect quite a different result here. So in this particular case, we get a good response so far about what hydrochloric acid is. And you will see there's a Wikipedia link, but there is also a link. If I go show more, this is annoying. When I tried this before, it actually referred to a document I had, which was a data sheet for hydrochloric acid. So in this particular case, the demo gods aren't being kind to me, but what should have happened is it should have given me a link to my data sheet for this particular chemical, because that's a more definitive result than something I've randomly found from the internet. So there we go.
And I've seen this as well, Dylan, is that the toggles at the top are not always robustly respected. So sometimes you'll ask it to only use work content and it will sneak web content in there. Sometimes it won't. And it's proved to me to be very difficult to get a blended approach, despite the engineering team at Microsoft who I spoke to saying, oh no, it should be able to do both. Sometimes it will pull out content from the web instead of looking at the stuff you've got in your tenant, and vice versa.
Actually, there we go. Let's just try it one more time. Give it a third time lucky. So when I tried this earlier today, and I do always run through my demos first, it was actually able to find the material safety data sheet, which is the definitive result that we would want in this we would expect. So In this case, it's failed. Now, I wonder what else I've got one. So, what is...
It's the beauty of generative AI, isn't it? It's
Mhm.
you know, it's non-deterministic. It's all
Yep.
the answer is not always going to be the same. So
Safety. Let's let spell checker sort that. Let's see. So if nothing else, we're demonstrating that it's still quite temperamental because it... Okay, so it's just giving me generic it's giving me generic information and it... Well, there we go.
Pull something out. There you go.
Well, ain't that weird? So, I was just about to say, well, look, crashed and burned. So in this particular case, it has found some PDF documents which have the correct process that you should do when you're dealing with hydrochloric acid. So there we go. It eventually got the point. So I guess that's illustrative of how the prompting sometimes isn't as obvious as what you think, and the results aren't quite as predictable as what you think. But in theory, if we'd gone straight to this would have been a great result, because we've shown that when we searched the web, we got one set of results. In this particular case, we have a corporate document, which is the approved process for what you should do with the stuff.
I've seen something similar to this before, Dylan, whereby the problem tends to be because you're using the edge side of things, because you've got multiple tabs open, it kind of gets its knickers in a twist about exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So if you did a new sort of in private browser session connected up to it, and asked exactly the same question with it pointing at work, it'd be totally different.
That's
yeah, that might be
Can
true.
we try that?
Okay, so I would have to... Simon, are you ready to take on that one, or do you want me to try that one?
No, you do it, because saves throwing screens around, and you've got the
okay.
prompt.
So what should I do at this point? Because I've got multiple...
create an in private session.
Okay, so
three
so if you
dots
just
on the top
right click on, if you right click on edge icon, you should be able to choose open in private session.
On where are we?
On your toolbar at the bottom.
Oh yeah, then I'll have to log in again, obviously. But
yeah, because that's the safest way of doing it.
Yeah, I suppose
I've seen this problem a lot. You know, that new in private window there above.
Yeah.
You'll log in again, but it will be a completely fresh side of logging in, no cache data or anything like that. And therefore, when you kill that session as well, all that cache data disappears.
Okay. Now you're asking me to go through my this is where
Yes, we are.
we are.
And this is why I ducked that particular opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you see how cunningly I tried to pass it, and it was not good enough, was it?
Yeah.
This is where I'm trying to remember. Let me just dig out my creds.
The thing is, it's always going to be different. Right? Every time you ask it a question, you're going to get a different response.
Which is actually sometimes a really good thing, because it gives you some different perspectives.
And I think that's the useful part, isn't it? It's that perspective side of things. Yeah. I think the hardest thing that I guess, personally come across and experienced is, in a way, is how do you ask the question correctly in the first place?
Though you can have pre-existing prompts, so sometimes you can lead people to the right prompt. That's one of the things we'll look at in a moment, is you can have some starter prompts, which is probably Microsoft acknowledging that you don't always get this stuff right first time. Right, so let's drop some acid, shall we? This is where, what is hydro? Why couldn't I pick sulfuric acid?
Come up with that, Dylan. Let's drop.
What's that? Sorry.
Acid. Did you ask Copilot to come up with that joke?
Yeah. Let's see.
You don't need to worry. Don't worry about correcting the spelling. Leave it bad. Leave it bad. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's got to be close enough.
No, that's fine. It would have been
Let's see how we get on with this. Okay, so I'm on work, and it's refused to find me something out about this. If we go back to our original question, which was what safety precautions?
I was going to say, the hydrochloric acid, it can get a good enough response from the web, can't it, for that?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. So you think this has specifically got answers to how you're supposed to store this and dilute it and things? And it's just not. So yeah, there we go. That just shows that it is quite temperamental, because the first time I tried this, it worked just straight off and gave me the PDFs in preference to everything else. So I guess, Simon, do you want to go further on the prompting, or have we got to the point we expected to, just on the difference between work and web and why it's sometimes a little bit squirrely?
No, I think that was fine. I was going to cover this, but you've covered it perfectly beautifully.
Okay,
Just a query for you. It sounds, this is daft, this is the way my brain works, unfortunately. But when you ran this afternoon, Dylan, and it worked fine, had you just uploaded the file to where it's stored before you then asked Copilot the question?
No, I'd uploaded them months ago, actually. They've probably been there
Okay.
6 months, so they've been
You can see
kicking
where I
around.
was going though with that logic, in case the system had remembered what you'd uploaded, therefore it's in its memory for generating a response from Copilot. It's just daft things like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll show you agents, and the idea is an agent could be laser focused on this, and so if we do need these results, but when you ask a question, when you ask it to reason over all of your data, it can be a little bit random. But I guess if you were talking about a project that's only a project in your company, in your organization, you might get a bit more focus on there.
Yeah,
Jeff?
I was going to say.
Yeah, no, you've taken off the screen. I was just going to ask if what happens if you kind of specify in the prompts to look at the documents you uploaded in your database. Does that change anything? Do you get different responses? I don't know. Instead of giving like a broad prompt and make it more specific, does it make any difference?
Should we give it a go?
It will do. Yeah, absolutely it will.
Yeah. So we could try that and give it a little bit. Like I said, there's ways of making it focus on just this. So I can actually show you an example of that. So what we've done before is we've actually created a extension point here where it just knows about certain things and it doesn't know about anything else. So in this, actually, I'll try it here first. So you can say using my documents. Let's just try that.
What's your tenant called? Is it
Standardwell? Yeah.
Yes. So could you ask what Standardwell's procedures around hydrochloric acid?
Wonder if you could say acid. Is it smart enough to know that? That's a lot easier to spell. I'll have to remember that for next time.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. How about that? So we actually have a decent response, as Jeff suggested, by telling it to only ground on my data.
Yeah.
So there we go. That is probably the tip to do. If it's ambiguous, say where you want that from. The other bit you can also do is you can essentially create an agent which has some grounding around this already. So in this particular case, I've created one I've told it, using information on the web, answer these questions, but don't answer these questions. So if I can say, how high is Snowdon? I've told it that answer questions about mountains in the British Isles, don't answer questions about anywhere else. So it's from the internet, it's giving me that answer. And I can say, how tall is Mont Blanc? And it tells you that it can't. So you've provided some grounding around there. So this isn't the chat in general. This is the idea that you can focus on something. So I'll just give up the share there. But that was a really good tip from Jeff there anyway, about giving it a bit of focus in your response.
Absolutely. Right. I'll just so thanks, Dylan. So we talked about 365 Copilot chat, a quick demo there. But when you come to to the same experience in Microsoft 365 Copilot, then it's grounded against your work content. As you can see in this example, we've got Copilot within Word. It's a demo that we're going to see shortly, but it's available to users with the Microsoft 365 Copilot license on top of your Microsoft 365 license, and you're going to have access to Copilot in Teams, Outlook, Office clients, Microsoft 365 app. And and this kind of experience, this Copilot experience, Microsoft called BizChat. And so BizChat started in Microsoft Teams, being able to kind of access the extensibility of Copilot to access agents and things, which we'll demo shortly. But that's now available throughout the Office clients, which I think is really, there's some exciting opportunities there for using generative AI kind of in everyday tools. So we talked about prompting. So I think this is over. Is this Simon?
That is over to me.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Terrific. Right. So let me just clear all the things that I had running in parallel, because that's going to be horribly confusing. I'm going to get rid of that and that and that. Come on, go back. There we go. Right. So I've been exploring using Copilot, that's the work version of Copilot as opposed to the public one, which I use all the time as well, but the work version, so M365 Copilot, to give me a daily start of the day summary of stuff. So I have a bunch of interests. I don't work that much anymore, so I often get behind on my emails because I only look at them once every other day. And I have whole days off, so I need to be able to get a good view of what's going on in my life because I'm not touching it in the office every day. So I'm going to show you a couple of things. I started off creating myself a prompt, and I'm going to share my screen for that. I'm just going to try a magic button. I've been trying to get this platform over here working, and is it going to work for me? I ought to get Dylan to help me with these complicated buttons. If I press that, that completely didn't do what I hoped. Right, plan B. So this was my original approach. I constructed a prompt, and I've been through probably 7, 8, maybe 12 iterations of this prompt to try and get it to run robustly the way I wanted. I'll just make that a whole chunk bigger for everyone, because as we've just established, the way it handles prompts can be inconsistent. So this is a variant on my prompt, and at the time that I was doing this, there was no other way that I had to run this other than capture it somewhere and then manually enter it into M365 Copilot and run it. So what I did was I created myself a daily meeting event. So this is a daily prompt. It's literally a meeting that comes up every day in my diary. I can show you that just to prove it. There's my daily prompt, which is exactly the thing I've just shown you there. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that one and just show you this one, probably the better one. So that's what I did. And I played with all sorts of different things, trying to tell it to use particular sources because of that issue we saw where it would sometimes use web content when I had things in my tenant or vice versa. You can see that I've actually got a mixture of stuff. So it's being asked to both check my email, Teams messages, and sometimes my calendar. It's also going off to the web, and I'm being asked to look at the Microsoft roadmap, and I'm going off to the web and getting some news related to sustainable energy and some other things that I'm involved in. So I've got this mixed mode prompt, and I've ended up breaking it down into a series of steps because I found that tended to help with some of the ways that Copilot responded. And because I can't get out the habit, I've been very polite all the way through. I just cannot stop myself saying, please, Copilot, can you do yes? Thank you very much for that. So kind of you. It's ingrained in my annoying Englishness. So that's what I did. And I'm going to grab all that just to prove my next point. So that was the way that I was running it. At the time, I'd usually run this when laying in bed waiting for my wife to wake up in the morning, because annoyingly, she sleeps much better than I do. So I'm awake for about an hour before she is. So I'd run this on my mobile. And the Copilot interface in the mobile is fine. I copy it out of the email, out of the daily meeting, and pop it in, and then I could read the couple of pages of response it would often give me. So that was what I was doing, and it still comes up every day to remind me to do this. But I'll tell you what has changed. The other thing that I've done is I've had variants of that here in OneNote, because I love OneNote. So actually, I really composed most of these messages in OneNote, ran them, tested them, and then when I was happy with whatever I'd created, I'd paste that back into my daily reminder. So let's just go and run one of those. So the first thing is, I just jump back onto the slide deck, wrong slide deck. Too many slide decks going on. That's all right, I'll do this live. The first thing is which Copilot. So if you look down here on my toolbar, yeah, I've got 3 already, and it gets really complicated. And Microsoft bugger around with the damn logos on a weekly basis, it seems like. So which Copilot should I be running? And right now, it's that one, which is the M365 Copilot, which we used to call the M365 app until they decided to have another little branding brain fart. So it's that one, because that one's basically my web public Copilot, what we call Copilot Chat, public chat, and then that's my personal Microsoft 365 tenant Copilot. So I've got 3 Copilots to choose between. Damned confusing. So anyway, we're going to do it in this one, which I'll just drag that over here, because here's one I prepared earlier. That's what it should look like, as we saw with Dylan, with the work mode and the web mode. And I'm going to run that prompt that you just saw me have in my daily in both work and web mode. And we'll just do a quick comparison of the differences. While that runs, if you are running this on your mobile, I find the mobile surprisingly slow, and it certainly isn't the quality of my hardware, because I've got a very fast smartphone, but for some reason Microsoft's responsiveness to the mobile calls is slow, and I think it's to do with the authentication. I don't think the mobiles handle Microsoft authentication and license checking effectively for reasons that I can't understand. Anyway, there's my sophisticated prompt. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, and it's nicely broken this down into the sections that I wanted, because that makes it much easier for me to get to the bit. Nice to hear I haven't got any notice web mode, no access to email or Teams. Basically, it can't read my private stuff, which is what you want. I mean, if I'm in web mode, it shouldn't be grounding itself in my company data. I have a question in there that says, only give me a week ahead summary of my week if it's a Monday, because by the time I'm into Tuesday, I should know that already. I don't have any meetings today. At least I don't have any meetings in my work tenant. I have 3 different tenants, which is confusing, and it can only read one tenant, which I think is a limitation at the moment. I would like these kind of things to be able to run multi-tenanted, so I can see all of my calendars, of which I have 3. It has given me some of the stuff from Microsoft, which is good, and it's referenced, so that's pretty good. And I haven't read this today, so I'm way behind, but there are some things that I didn't know. So that's cool. And it's given me a little bit of a summary on the UK sustainability stuff. And if anybody wants to know about that, ask me offline. And it's given me some stuff on the grid, which is unreliable. So I have to go and get it to check that quite frequently, because it sometimes uses an average set of data rather than data from the definitive sources that I specify. So I have to be really careful with that. And I've called it out several times, but that's about right, actually. It's about right. So I have to go and check that again. And it gives me a weather forecast. So that's fine, but it's clearly just giving me web-based stuff. If I run this in mixed mode, in work mode, right, now it's checking my emails and stuff, which is great. I get an awful lot of stuff from Microsoft. And I have got a filter that in theory tells it to ignore anything that's to do with Azure or Power Platform or other Microsoft stuff that I'm less interested in. But even then, some of this stuff sneaks in. So that's an Azure issue that snuck in. But Discovery Hours, good. My weekly digest is good, although I really ought to get myself a tweak to give me an actual summary breakdown of that, because there's too much for me to read. Collab Summit, that's cool. Can't go to that this year. bunch of meetings, probably nothing too private in there. Copilot announcements, great. So it's checking some of that stuff for me. Right. So now look what's happened. So now it's gone off. I've told it to go to the web and find stuff. That's a different set of data. That's a different set of data. And the reason is that I've got some presentations for the stuff, the work I do on sustainability, that's got wind, solar and gas generation numbers in it. And even though I've told it to use a legitimate web source, it's looked at the data I have on my tenant in preference.
Reverse of the problem I had.
Yes. And so I think the learning, the counsel here is you really can't do mixed mode queries at the moment. You need to do one set of queries against your work stuff, for work stuff, and then have a second prompt, which is to do with web-based content, because it will repeatedly get that wrong. So some good learning there. And then there's a bunch of other stuff down the bottom. So that was my first thing. Okay. However, I don't really want to have to go and rewrite or go off to OneNote and copy that prompt every time. So let's just jump back up to the prompt itself and have a look at some new features. And there's some new stuff on here different to 2 weeks ago when I was playing with this last. If I go up to my prompt and mouse over it, you've got some pop-ups. And it took me quite a while to figure this out because these currently do not appear or did not appear last week on the mobile version. But on the desktop version or the browser version, you've got schedule, save, and actually a share button, copy. So let's do save first. That's super easy. I'm just going to save this as itemized daily prompt. So there it is. I give it a title. It's got the full text of the prompt that I gave it. And I'm going to save that. And I'll come back to that in just now. I'm going to do that right now. Down here, at least that's where it is at the moment, because that view prompts was somewhere else some weeks ago. And right down here is the view prompts piece. It's got a whole bunch of things that I never, ever use. These are its idea of trying to prompt you. I think that the moment people start saving their own prompts, this lot should not be the default landing screen. And I'll be talking to Microsoft about that this time next month, because I will probably have a set of prompts I want to use. And here's the one that I just saved, itemized daily prompts. You will notice that I have some duplicates. And that's because 2 weeks ago, there was no way to edit these, whereas now you can. But the interface to your saved prompts leaves quite a bit to be desired at the moment. It's difficult to manage them from here. However, it is interesting that it looks like I've now got some tags to say whether it's a work prompt or a web prompt. I'm going to have to go and check that now. So let me come out of that, because that wasn't there last time I checked. Let me just run that again. It's easier than trying to find it. Let that run. Blah, blah, blah. I wonder what data it's using this time around. That's still consistent. That's nice. Oh, go on, let me have a... You'll also notice that there's an additional copy option up here, which doesn't exist in the work one for reasons unknown. So, public web daily prompt. And so I'm learning with you simultaneously at this moment in time. So I've saved that in the web mode. And well, that's interesting. Okay. So it turns out that when you go into your saved prompts, it gives you a different set of results based on whether you're in the work toggle or the web toggle. I genuinely didn't know that until just now. So that explains why I kept losing my prompts. If I'm in work, I get the ones I've saved in work mode. And if I'm in web, I've got the ones I saved in red mode. Okay, well, that explains a few things. Right, so that's saved prompts. The other thing which is interesting, though, is to jump back on. So this is my recent chat. So it now has a history function. That's really useful, actually, being able to go back and look at prompts you've used over the last few weeks. I'm just going to go back up to the prompt that I ran earlier and do the scheduling. Now, this is a preview feature. You've got to assign it. So I'm probably in danger of running up against the NDA that I've signed for this. But my understanding is that the stuff I'm going to show you is in the public domain. So I'm going to show you this. It'll be the first view of it you've probably had. So this is a way of scheduling a prompt. So again, here's a prompt that I already generated. And I can say, when do I want it to start? So tomorrow would be good. When do I want it to run? It's a daily prompt, so 7:30 sounds fine. I'm going to run it every day except Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to run it the maximum number of times, which annoyingly is only 2 weeks, so 15 days or thereabouts. And I'm going to save and activate it. So that will now run a prompt for me every workday for the next 2 weeks or thereabouts.
This is similar, Simon, to what ChatGPT's got with regards to ChatGPT 4.0 with tasks, because you can now create tasks that run on a frequency similar to what you've just put in there, but it doesn't have a limit to the number of, like you've got 15 days. I can say, just create this task and run it at 8 a.m. every Wednesday morning, and it'll continue to do that until I stop the task. That's in ChatGPT as well. So I mean, obviously Copilot is based upon ChatGPT 4.0, so you would have thought at some point there will be some of this functionality that Copilot will have available to it as well.
Yes, I was unaware, but I'm unsurprised that it's in ChatGPT for exactly the reasons you say. I'm a little annoyed that Microsoft have put run limits on it, and ChatGPT hasn't. But hey, there you go. Behind the scenes, and again, I'm in danger of slamming up against NDA, so I'll be coy about it. But behind the scenes, these scheduled prompts are running using Power Automate. You can get into the individual Power Automate flows and look at the scheduled prompts you've created. In theory, you can extend or modify them in Power Automate, although the actual prompt generation or prompt run step in the flows have got some stuff in there that I don't understand. I can't figure out how it is actually passing the command that's within the run this prompt step in order to get the output. So I can see how it will run the prompt, but I can't find a way within Power Automate to grab the result of that prompt and do something else with it, because I might like to send the output of the prompt to an email, to a Teams channel, to somewhere else. And this is the current limitation on these scheduled prompts. It'll run it. The only place, I'll come back to this piece in a minute, the only place you can get it, the output, is in the recent chats thing. So it'll run it, do nothing more with it. Doesn't let you know it's done it.
That's exactly the same as what GTP 4.0's got, because it'll run it and effectively it doesn't create a new chat or anything like that. You'll have a chat that's in the left-hand menu they've got, obviously.
Yeah.
That'll be called task, whatever it is, weekly.
Yep.
In my head, like I've started doing like a mental health weekly sort of top 5 thing. So if I put that into ChatGPT, I would just have one sort of chat there called weekly mental health thing. I get an email saying that a new post has been generated.
Yep.
And then from that perspective, I could then click on to the link that's in the email, and then that would take me to the same place that I could get to manually if I was in ChatGPT. And then you've effectively got the latest post added underneath the previous week's post. They do it in that way. So in a way, it's very similar to what you've just shown on there. I mean, I've tested the ChatGPT out. It's all right. Don't get me wrong. It's like everything AI. It's that sort of, we've had the peak, we've come down a little bit, and now we've got, okay, now we need to understand how we can make it benefit us.
And I guess
Yeah.
that's the problem, isn't it, Mark, that it doesn't have access to your work information, so it's not so useful.
Yeah, and that's the difference with ChatGPT 4o is like, you know, from anything that it is talking to the biggest library in the world, which is the web. You know, if you think of it that way, how good is that library? At best of times, you never quite know. And I think what you get back is then down to your own experience, really, and knowledge to be able to validate what's coming back and say, well, actually, that's quite good. Let's change my perspective. I never thought about that. And oh, yeah, let me try this. And it's kind of like, instead of a single light at the end of the tunnel, I've got now multiple lights at the end of a tunnel to think about.
Yeah, I have to decide which way you're going to follow. But again, great information. I didn't know about ChatGPT having that functionality. I think what I can't get this to do, I can get it to send me a notification that it's run, which reminds me. So I could use that instead of my daily calendar reminder, but I can't get a link to any place where I can go and view that. All I can do is manually go into Copilot and look at the previously run prompt, which I think is disappointing at the moment, because I really want it to come to me through the channels that I use the most, and it's a bit more untidy on the mobile device than it is on the desk. But nevertheless, it's getting there. I would see us being able to do some really funky things with this because it's in Power Automate. What I might want to do is to get that content which is generated on a daily basis. And some of these runs can take quite some time. You know, it can take 30 or 60 seconds to complete a prompt with some of the sophisticated ones I've been using. But I'd like to be able to get the output of that and maybe push it out through a service to turn it into a micro podcast. So I actually listen to it on my way to work or whatever it is. So there's really cool things we could do if we could intercept these scheduled prompts and turn it into a medium that's appropriate. Yeah, I might automate pushing it out to a blog if I wasn't reading my internal content, but I might be automating it and pushing it out to Viva Engage or one of those other tools that we're using internally, you know, to be able to generate content and automate the push of that content to a bunch of people. So cool things to come, but it's in preview, and it's very much obviously in preview in terms of the functionality right now.
Yeah, Simon, another way of doing it might be to use triggers in a Copilot agent, because then you can sort of get it to schedule it to run every day. Jeff.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. From my understanding, it seems like the difference between the web and the work part is the access to the current users' permissions on the tenants, indiscriminately giving permissions to all the files.
No. It doesn't give it. That does. You only have access. You only Copilot will work as the user who's executed it, but I only have access to the content that that user has access to. It won't have access to anything else which the user doesn't have access to.
Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
search. It's security trimmed.
Yeah. It's a question that comes up really often, Jeff, and people should be rightly worried about it. But Microsoft have applied all the same privacy, security, and permission settings to a Copilot-based query that you'd have on any other kind of search or manual access or browsing.
Yeah.
Does
that mean?
Sorry, carry on.
I can say if it does mean though, if you don't have, if you don't have your permissions correctly specified, and there's, if you do a search for salary, for example, it doesn't have to be Copilot, you just do a search for salary, and that comes when you've got access to that information, then Copilot will also have access to that information. So that it is important to kind of make sure you've got permissions are set correctly, and people have got contact or access to the content which they should have access to.
So I guess my question sort of is very similar to what Jeff sort of asked, and that was, I think you've mentioned that we're going to talk about the agents and things like that. So if you've got an agent running, you've obviously connected up to your Office 365 account or whatever it might be, whatever you want to call it, and you'll get this agent. I'm assuming that your sign-in details must be part of that connectivity to not only Copilot but to the agent, so that when it goes away and looks for the information, it knows whether or not your account does have access to the plethora of information that might be stored within your tenant, if you think of it that way, that perhaps you shouldn't have access to.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, when you create an agent, for it to have access to SharePoint content, you need to configure sort of a single sign-on, and you create an application, a Microsoft Enter ID application, and that needs to have rights to SharePoint. And when you create the Copilot agent, you sort of specify the scope. So you can say, oh, you can access SharePoint, but it logs in under your user account. It does. It would be possible though. You could have it where you had in the Copilot agent, you might have a flow running, and that's running as a different user, and that will pull content as that user. But
that should be a risk, surely, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and so and it warns you. So within the Copilot agent, it will show you at the top you've got these risks, and it will highlight the fact that you've got a flow running, not as the user, but as a general account.
It's like the example you gave, like looking for salary. If for whatever reason you haven't understood that risk and you've got something running in the background that's got an elevated account, and I turn around and ask to the agent, oh, show me the salary of every person in this business. If you haven't thought of it from the other side of the coin, that side of it, you might end up getting back all this information that, technically speaking, you're not allowed to see.
Yeah, though I would say that doing that in a flow is, you wouldn't use a flow for that. But you're right. Yeah, you would. You'd have to have a reasonable amount of technical, sort of nous to be able to get the flow to run anyway. So, but yes, it could be possible. But when it's knowledge, when you're within a Copilot and you're adding, you can access these SharePoint areas, then it's running in the context of the user that's accessing the agent.
Interesting. Right, just to wrap up, I just thought I'd try a little experiment. So I ran an event last year. So I did the same search, but on work and web. On the work one, I asked it to tell me about the agenda for this event that I ran last year, and it's given me a fairly detailed response, because that's being able to go in and look at the internal documents on my tenant. When I ran it in the web mode, it's given me a shorter version, only that bit which was published on a number of public resources. So so it is doing its right thing. What is noticeable, and again to me I wanted to highlight because it's actually a bit annoying, is every time you switch between those, it effectively starts a new prompt. And you've got to go back and pull up the recent prompt thing, which I think is a bit irritating, if I'm honest, but I thought I'd share.
Isn't it peculiar though, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but what you've just done, Simon, is exactly what Dylan's done when he was doing his demonstration. His sort of uploads and information didn't come back, and yet yours has. Yes,
it is very odd, isn't it? I think it's mostly because tech just likes me better than Dylan. Which is why Dylan, he doesn't have to think about if the demo gods have been kind, because he knows that they won't be. And the gods love me, all of them.
Right, should we go back to the slides? Okay.
So you can skip past my. I've got a bunch of builds here, but I've done it a different way.
So just on the prompting, there's a really a couple of one. I don't know both MVPs, but Femke certainly is. There's this cheat sheet from Team Copilot. So if you haven't checked out teamcopilot.nl, there's some great articles on there. But they've got this really nice cheat sheet on prompting. It doesn't have to be Copilot, but it could be any of the AI tools really. But using this goal plus context, asking for an expectation, and the sources to use. So there's I'll share some links at the end. But yeah, using that kind of approach when you're thinking about asking AI to do something, generative AI to do something for you, and what is it you're trying to achieve? What's the context of it? And then what you're expecting, and some examples in there as well.
I just want to reinforce the cheat sheets that Femke and her colleagues have generated are brilliant, so good that I've with her permission nicked the idea and created one specifically around Copilot in Teams meetings, which I've just added to chat for you, for those of you that have got access to chat. So knock yourself out.
Nice, thanks, Lauren. So these are some of the ones I use, just planning next week. So it'll give me a list broken down day by day of my days. You just have to tell it the date that you're starting. It's even better if you give it a year too. I did notice that I ran it the other day and it pulled out some action from last year. There we go. And then also planning for tomorrow as well. The other thing as well is helping you sort of communicate more effectively as well. This is something that Simon and I've chatted about before, this concept of the DISC profile, where you've got different personality types, which and each have a different way they like to be communicated with. So somebody who's a D is someone who's kind of wants very direct communication, maybe a bullet point of 3 bullet points, whereas somebody who is conscientious, a C, is sort of like an accountant type. They want lots of detail. So you can use it to kind of give you, looking at the conversations, the way that person's chatting with you, sort of recommending how to sell something to Dylan in this example. So that's quite useful. Dylan, it thinks you're an I, which is interesting. I have no idea. Anyway, we've talked about the prompt gallery before, so Simon talks through that. And then the other one, just to be aware, is there's loads of resources which Microsoft have got out there, and this URL will kind of give you some more inspiration, get help with prompting, and I do recommend saving your prompts for reuse. Do you want to do a SharePoint agent?
Sure.
Go for it.
In the immortal words of Blue Peter, here's one we prepared earlier.
Yep.
So what we have here is a document library, and I've filled it to the brim with books in French. And if you click on things like this, you will see that it is properly in French. So obviously, life is too short to read French literature in French. But we'd like to pretend we know things about French literature. So it really is this simple. We say create an agent. And at this point, I have an agent. So just to prove that, I'll say open agent. And this is accepting all the defaults. We've done nothing here. So I can say, who are the 3 musketeers? That's probably close enough. Let's go with that. And just to prove that it is actually grounded on the information here, it's given me a fairly good summary of this, and it has given a reference to the actual original piece of information. So it's, when you see that, you think, wow, this is just amazing. So it is that simple to create an agent. Now, the immediate question everybody has is saying, but, can we limit it? Can we make it do these things? Can we do other things? And yes, you can. And the answer is Copilot Studio is your configuration surface. So the problem with this is it's used some information from the web and some information from the outside. So if I am to ask it a question like, which of these stories would make good musical theatre, it's not really analyzing these books, but it's actually well, interesting enough, it's got something from here, but it's, if you could see, this isn't one of the stories there. So it's gone out to the web. Now, in this particular case, we haven't controlled what's answered from inside, what's answered from outside. So we have limited control over this. Now, This is actually quite good, but it's not quite sure. It's not naming its sources and things like that. We can look at another example here where we have a whole series of boring books about the sea, and they're all in English, and they all have a common theme of pieces of literature about the sea. So we can create ourselves an agent again. And in this particular case, we're actually going to specify a few things about it. So you will see the sources. At this point, it's saying sourced from this document library called Salty Tales. You'll see here it gives you a teaser to say add advanced customization in Copilot Studio, as I just suggested, and it just says not yet. But you have some control over its behavior. So I can say things, instructions for the agent. We are going to say use only the information in the document library. My typing is especially good today. Let's just fix that. And talk like a pirate. So let's see how we get on with this. I can test that right away if I want to, and I can say, who is Captain Nemo? And let's see what we get. So it's searching through those documents. You can see that it's generated a reference quite correctly to one of those documents, and it has talked like a pirate. So in this particular case, it's done a pretty good job, I'd say. So obviously in a typical corporate setting, it's not talk like a pirate day, but the point is there to illustrate that you can shape how it replies. So it's just used that. It is actually capable of reasoning on things. So in these particular stories, there's lots of stories about different captains. So I can say it's not just regurgitating information like search, but you can make it reason over that. So tell me about the different captains in the documents. And you can see that it's actually gone through all of the different documents and pulled out the different captains. So I'd say that's actually pretty useful for a couple of clicks. And that is it. We've just created an agent here. I can open the agent directly here. This is our new agent here. And I can interact with it. So who is Moby Dick? I think Moby Dick's in there. Let's see how good the filters are, because this has triggered the filters before. There we go. It has found Moby Dick. So the filters haven't gone off. They do randomly get off. So that's really it for making a SharePoint agent. If you need to have finer grained control over this, you can go into Copilot Studio and you can insist that it doesn't use information from outside and you can shape it. So your experience with SharePoint agents, it's very, very quick to get something working, but you'll find it's got quite a few rough edges because you can't, it's just going to take the happy path every time.
Well, thanks, Dylan. So next one we talked about is, we haven't mentioned about Copilot pages. Dylan, would you?
We've got a question there. I can just see somebody's hand up.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to find the agent in my SharePoint. For some reason, I can't find it. I'm not sure. I have the license and everything. Is there any plugin I should activate, or how does it work?
It should just be there. And interestingly enough, something's gone into general availability today where the agents, the pay-as-you-go agents, should now be available as well. But quite a few people have said to me, hey, I can't find agents on my tenant.
Yeah. Is there some steps to turn it on? Did someone?
Should just be there. If you guys want to have a look at your own tenants and tenancies and see whether they're there, because obviously we're using demo tenants where we have absolutely everything and we don't suffer administrators turning stuff off. Or
surprisingly, I don't even have the work and the web. Some colleagues of mine, they do, but I don't on my side.
Has it been something that's been switched on recently? Have you just been given the license? Have you had it for a while?
I do have the license.
Yeah, no, when were you given the license? Was it recently?
Yeah, recently. Yeah, it was yesterday.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Does it-
yeah, it
Yeah.
takes some days.
Okay.
Yeah, I
it
went through
can do,
exactly that
yeah.
process with you. So where is it? And it took some days.
Okay, that explains why then.
One of there's someone who was chatting in one of our WhatsApp chats, and it took 18 hours for it to appear in theirs. But there's some things you can try, like restarting Teams, logging out, logging back in again, just so it picks up all your latest licenses and claims and things. That's where I'd sort of start. But that's a rubbish answer, isn't it? Just switch it off and back on again.
If
All
you're
of these
accessing
things
things if you're accessing things through the browser as well, make sure you clear your cache as well, because that can be a real pain point if it's got cached in, all your data's cached. It doesn't get cleared by default.
Okay, I will try to clear them out and then see whether it works. Thanks.
Yeah, and it may just appear whether you do anything or not in a couple of days. I know that's a terrible answer, but that's often how these things are. So what I'd like to do now is show you a little bit about Copilot pages. So if we start with a prompt,
Can you share your Dylan? I've stolen a share, so you share your screen again, please, bud.
Yep. So I'm just starting with a prompt. Here we are back in Copilot. And I'm going to, if you notice, I'm in work mode, not web. So I should actually be in web mode at this point. So it's always worth thinking about which way around the button is before you start work on something. So in this particular case, I'm using external information. This is going to be answered from the web rather than from work. And I'm going to say, please create an article about the elves of Middle Earth. And I want an org chart in Mermaid. So if you've never seen Mermaid, Mermaid is amazing. But it took me a few attempts with this prompt to get it right. It gave me charts of mermaids. It's gave me all sorts of random stuff. So sometimes a small difference is significant, but let's give this a go. So what I've said is I want to know all about the elves of Middle Earth, and I want it to draw me a diagram for an org chart because org charts are really important. So here we go. So you could see an article here, and you can see some responses here. And you can see in the middle of this is what's called a mermaid format. Now it is a version of Markdown, which is made for making charts. And you think, okay, not very useful so far. That's great. But actually what I'm going to do now at this point is I'm going to say edit in pages. Now, those of you that have used in chat, if you use Canvas, this is very, very similar. In fact, it's essentially Canvas, pretty much a parallel product. I'd say they each have their own advantages and disadvantages. But if I say edit in pages, you will see down here, here's the document we're creating. This is in loop. This is a loop document we've got here. And you can see it's formatted it quite nicely. And if you can see here, it's recognized that this is Mermaid and it has applied the correct formatter. And it has a nice little org chart here. Now, it's done really well, and then at this point it's weed its pants and it's gone off the rails here and it's lost its formatting. So nice try, and it just stretched itself a bit too far there and it didn't work. But the nice thing is this is not unlike what you can do with Canvas, so we can prompt it again. So you can say, please add more details to the notable elves. So it's blah, 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 blah. And so we can say edit in pages, and you find we've lost and you find it's added some more stuff there. And you think, okay, the nice thing about this is the editing is actually pretty civilized. Now, those of you who use Canvas in ChatGPT find that you're constantly fighting with this. It deletes my stuff. It's a great way of working, the idea of co-working, but you end up tripping over each other. This actually seems to be a bit better. So inside of here, you can do some, you can prompt, you can get it to rewrite stuff. So if you rewrite this section here, so you can obviously format it. It's actually pretty rich. And within here, you can drag these things around. So you can change the ordering, all the sort of things you do in a big document. It's actually really nicely done. I'd say this is better than how it's done in Canvas for the most part. And you can get it to add a new section here. So we could add a table if we wanted to. Mermaid charts, as we just demonstrated here, table of contents. Let's give a table of contents up the top, see what we get. So if we were to go for a table of contents, actually get something that's pretty decent. I'd say it's actually a very, very powerful way of creating documents. And you have to remember, in this particular case, it's grounded on the web, but this could also be grounded on work. So if you're creating a document from other documents, this is actually really fantastic. And this is in Pages. So this is Loop. This is a Loop document. So if you click in here, you can dig this out here and you can see our article here and we can return to it. So that's pretty much it. You could spend a lot more time playing with this, and the best way is just to play with it as well, because you've got the ability, Copilot is there, so you can rewrite stuff if you were so wanted to, say, make longer. It's really quite a powerful way of working. So it brings together all the things. Any questions on what we've seen so far as we revert back to the deck?
Go for it. Is it
Great
Sequali?
question.
How do you pronounce your name? Sorry.
Rim.
Sequali? Oh, Rim. Oh, sorry. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Based on everybody's experience about the application, the web, which platform is the fastest?
You mean which Copilot platform or which AI platform?
I mean, Copilot in the app, desktop-based, or the web? Which one to use?
Okay, so my experience is that if I'm doing web research, the Copilot that runs in the Edge browser or natively in Edge is the fastest. It's almost instant, and the speech interface on it has improved quite a lot and is almost instant. I mean, there's virtually no noticeable lag. It's faster than Alexa at giving you responses to questions. So that's my experience. As soon as it has to navigate the permissions model within your work tenant, it definitely is slower.
Yeah.
Right. And when it comes to the work part, either both are similar.
I find it in in Teams is as good as any. Yeah.
Okay.
As long as so yeah. For me, it's much of a muchness, but
All right. Thank you.
I mean, the reality is almost all of them are actually web-based queries on the back end. It would be Socket there or whatever the heck the modern version of that is. So they're all pretty quick. The only time I find it all tediously slow is on the mobile device.
Yeah, and like you say, that's often the authentication stuff getting in the way, isn't it? So yeah, agreed. Okay, thanks, Dylan, for taking us through Copilot Pages. Just wanted to talk about Copilot Agents and a couple of demos here. Copilot Agents, as Dylan mentioned, these are where we take generative AI and we make it very sort of precise about what it's got to do. It's like a mobile app, really. Mobile apps, generally they've got a particular purpose, and then the idea is you create an agent around that particular purpose. So maybe it's a role, maybe a particular business function. I've got a couple of demos here that I'm going to show you. Within the Microsoft 365 Copilot Agents, you've got these once you can build a Copilot Studio, and you can sort of target particular knowledge. That could be a particular website, could be particular SharePoint content. It can now be accessing Dataverse information as well. So if you've got Dynamics or CRM system such as Dynamics, then you're able to get it to reason over those data structures too. And there are abilities to connect to other systems too. You've also got you create these, they're called declarative agents. So you can connect them into the Microsoft 365, but they're using Microsoft's large language model. So they're using the GPT-4o model, but it's been, it's controlled by Microsoft. What is coming sort of soon, I see dates of probably around build time. It's something called a custom engine Copilot, and that's where you replace the Microsoft LLM with your own, and you'd use that if you wanted to use some of the newer models like OpenAI's O1 or O3 or another model which isn't a OpenAI model. So you've got some options there, but we're going to do a couple of demos, just showing you some ideas really about things you can do. There's one for a sales team, and then there's one within Microsoft Word as well. So I'm just going to share my screen here and then find which window I've got. So I've got this one. This is, I call it Napoleon. We actually use this internally. But the concept of it is it's for a sales team. You know, they might be out on a customer site. You know, maybe the customer's talking about some problems they've got. You know, we're starting to, you know, just engage with them, trying to find sort of ways we can help them. So in this example, you know, chatting with a customer, you know, how can they, you know, they want to sort of improve the communication across the organization. You know, what can we do to help? And so we've loaded in a set of documents around services which we perform, what the challenge is. So I can ask it that question. So it's going to, you know, give us responses back. And you can see up above, the responses come back. So you can see this is it taking its time. It's not as quick as, say, the web, because it's accessing that SharePoint content, and it's accessing it through. So there's two different ways. You can either, if you have got a Microsoft 365 Copilot license in your tenant, then it's going to use something called the semantic index. You get much better results. But if you don't, then it's just going to be using your Microsoft 365 search. So in this example, we've got to improve communication across the organization. We've got the following solutions. We've got intranet accelerators. We talked about you know, improving mobile access to users, distributed news publishing, and various other bits and pieces which we do. So that's great. So you've got ways of asking information as well. But these agents, they can do more than that. They don't have to be just knowledge, you know, information. So we can do things like, for example, I would like to create a sales proposal. So, you know, when we're a salesperson, we want to create a sales proposal. And so it's going to start asking us questions. So I'll do one for NoviWorks. And it's going to ask me what the name of the solution is, and I'll say, I don't know, Copilot training. And we can use this Copilot agent to kind of ask questions. This is reading available proposal templates we've got. So we can have, I don't know, this application development proposal template, and it will then use that Word document and it will create a proposal using the information. But you could extend this out further to kind of be able to access Dynamics information, to be able to create new opportunities in your CRM system, whatever those things that a salesperson needs to be able to do. And if I just sort of fire that open, you'll just see a Word document come up here. Just bring that into Word because it looks better in Word. And so that's the Word document that's created, and you can see, you know, it's pre-populated the title and the NoviWorks, and so you've got something which you can then start filling out. So that's just an example of a Copilot agent, just taking it a little bit further than what, you know, we often see in demos. The other one then is, you know, again, another Copilot agent, but this is embedded in Word now. And this is where I really think the power of these generative AI tools come in. So the way that you access a Copilot agent in BizChat is you mention it. So we've got a terribly named agent called Bidster, and it's helping us write answers to a bidding proposal, bidding questions. So I'm going to take this this document here, this bid proposal example demo, and I've got a question here. Provide examples of how you deliver sustainable residential properties. And so this Copilot agent has access to a load of different proposals around construction. And so I can pop into this question here. So I could say, please answer in 100 words or less. and I've told it that what it is. So the agent, you explain to it its role, how it should behave, and you can tweak and change that to get the responses that you need for within your business. So I can then ask this question. It's going to comb through some documents. And it's going to come up with some results. So we deliverable sustainable residential properties like Ferris Road. It talks about ESG, about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But when it's in Word, I can, just pop that answer back in using the insert command. So it will allow me to start doing that. And I might, go off and maybe rewrite that or make changes. So just a different way of working. And I think this is, like I say, where these agents are really, really powerful. So yeah, that's why I wanted to show you a couple of agents. Right. Well, I'll just fire back the slides again. We're coming towards the end now. We talked about one of the inbuilt agents is the facilitator agent. So this allows you to create meetings and switch on transcription, and then you can switch on these AI generated notes. So how you do that, if you've got the new calendar experience, you can go and create a calendar and then go into the meeting options, and you'll now see the AI generated notes. And this will start to fill out those meeting notes as your meeting is happening. It does take a little bit of time for it to kind of kick in, but it starts writing as you talk. It's really, really powerful stuff. And these agents, there's going to be more of them coming. We've got the project agent coming and the interpretation agent as well too, which I think is that already out. It's out shortly.
Simon, do you have to turn that on per meeting, or can you set that up to be on by default?
Do you know what? I haven't tried to see if you can with Teams Premium, if you can set up a template with it automatically switched on. You can certainly do it reoccurring meetings, but yeah, I don't know if you can get it to default. I haven't tried. I haven't had a look. But,
okay.
We could have a quick look while at the end of this. Right. This is coming to the end now. I just wanted to share some resources with you. So we've got there's a really great podcast by fellow MVPs Kevin and Zoe called Copilot Connection. They had a really good session a couple of weeks ago, just talking about all the new Copilot announcements coming up, all the new things coming out on the Microsoft 365 roadmap. If you're looking to kind of get Copilot embedded in your organization, then the great Copilot journey is available through the tech community. And this allows you, it's a set of basically a course set up by a number of weeks, which you can sort of create and push out to your organization to bring them on the journey. And we were talking about sort of the adoption cycle and the trough of disillusionment. This is where Copilot can unfortunately fail, where there isn't enough effort going in to explaining to people how they can use Copilot. And we do hope that some of the things we've shown you kind of helps you on your journey. And please share some things which you use it for as well, because we're all learning this stuff. But yeah, two great resources. And then the third one was the Team Copilot with Femke and Jeroen as well on, and they put some great resources out there about how adoption of Copilot. So please go and grab those. We will be back next month on the 18th of March, Tuesday. Is there any questions?
I've got a couple, but I'll wait until if anybody else has got them before I ask them, Simon.
Absolutely. I'll stop sharing.
Don't stop sharing, because
Oh no,
if you just go forward 2 slides,
2 slides. Oh, very nice.
we now have a Blue Sky account. So feel free to sign up to that, because you certainly won't find any updates on Twitter from me anymore. But Meetup's good, but this is where we tend to, this is where we'll tend to share on interesting things and live stuff around the user group. And then the next slide, while we were talking, I did a bit of digging. It turns out it might be possible to do multi-account access. I literally only just found out about this, but there's a policy setting that seems like it might give me the ability to run personal and private tenant queries. So I'm going to be having a play with that, but this is the these are the links and how to get to that setting. It's buried away in the Copilot admin center policy management, policy for users, multiple account access to Copilot for work documents settings. So it took some finding.
Yeah, I think this one as well, Simon, is the this issue where people say, well, I'm licensed for Copilot on my tenant, but when I go into somebody else's tenant, I don't have Copilot capabilities.
Absolutely,
And,
it's definitely
this
for
is
that.
coming as well.
But looking at the documents behind that Learn article, it also talks
Yeah.
about accessing your personal stuff.
That's cool.
So fingers crossed, I'll be getting that set up, because I have my stuff shared all over the bloody place.
Yeah, really cool.
Hmm.
If there's no other questions, then Mark, feel free.
Yeah, what have you got for us?
Okay, so the first one is an interesting one. On one of the earlier slides, you showed the difference between the £30 a month Copilot for work or whatever it is, and then you've got the now free the version that you get with the personal licenses. And obviously the personal license, because I've got one of those as well for personal emails and whatever else, but I know the cost of that has gone up from whatever it was, £5.99 a month to £8.49 a month. But yet the functionality for Copilot allows me to use Copilot in Word, Excel, etc., for just that extra £3 a month. But if I do it in the work one, it's going to cost me £30 a month. Any reason why there's such a massive difference between £3 and 30 when one's a personal license and one's a work-based license? What's the biggest difference, really? Because for me, when I do a search, they're both giving me exactly the same functionality. One's in a personal state and one's in a work state. The sort of, I guess, the bad side of things is that what's to stop people taking their personal document out of their work, putting it into their sort of OneDrive on their personal account, loading it up in their personal thing, asking Copilot at the £3 a month version, and then transferring it back over to the work?
It's an interesting question, and it's actually different in the past. At one point, if you had one Copilot license, it was sticky and it applied to multiple accounts. So I noticed that even I was paying for the personal one, and it would have that Copilot ability in OneNote across everything. Now, since then, they've changed the licensing and they made it overzealous. So if you have multiple accounts, you'd be fighting with it. But now we actually seem to have reached a equitable range where it's each of them seems to have their own domain. But the main difference, obviously, is that it's grounding in the web versus grounding in your company data. We can actually have a little play with it if you want. I can share my screen and we can go through what the different results we get between different accounts might be, if that helps you understand. But it's essentially it's access to work data is what you pay the extra £30 for.
But the personal account will reach into your personal 365.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't just grounded in the web, it is grounded in your personal documents. The difference is the scope. Well, there's 3 reasons in my mind, Mark, and this is an opinion, not the Microsoft position. One is the number of applications that are touched by Copilot is much greater in the Work 365. Because there's SharePoint and just all that stuff, and the graph, and loads and loads of stuff. That's reason number 1. The second is the enterprise grade security permission permissions, etc. Which, you know, it's just a lot stronger, a lot more robust, and a lot more governable in the work version. And the third one is because they can, or rather, yeah, equally, because they can't do it with personal. If they tried, when they tried to charge people 30 quid a month for personal, nobody bought it.
Yeah. It's the same reason that Microsoft, a personal edition of M365 is what, £5 a month, whereas if you buy an E1, it's £30, isn't it? It's exactly the same reasoning.
Yeah.
Do you have different? I mean, do you also have different? You know, like not terms and conditions, but different service plans as well. Like, is the backup? You know, those side of things bigger or more extensive in the commercial side? Do you have copyright protection in Copilot?
It's commercial data protection, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it'd be interesting. I'm just playing around now on screen with.
It's just an interesting one for me. It's like, because I mean, like yourselves, you've got dev environments. I've got a dev environment that I play around with because it's got access to anything and everything, and I can break it, and I ain't got to worry about it if that's the case. But then obviously I've got a work-based one, which, you know, it's set up correctly. You don't have full access to everything. It's because the company I work for don't have that access at this moment in time. They don't see any validity in particular applications. So that's up to them. And, you know, I can only twist their arm so far, as they say. But the personal side of it, I use it for like my Outlook.com account side of things. But that's got a 1 terabyte storage location in OneDrive. So it's exactly the same as what I would get by default if I had an E3 or whatever it is side of it. It's that kind of, to me, it's like, what's the real difference between paying £3 a month and paying £30 a month? And how I see like Copilot having massive impact is using it within what I call the standard applications, the Word, the Excel, the PowerPoints, the Outlook and things like that. I mean, I love Loop. I'm a Loop fan massively, but you don't get Loop, as far as I'm aware of, in the personal plan, which is fair enough. You know, I don't have any issues with that. But the main documents that everybody uses, it's available in both sides of it. And really, it's just down to, on one hand, you pay an extra £27 a month, plus you get all the extra goodies that you get with it in the work, versus £3 a month extra in your personal. And to me, like you say, it's because they can.
Well, I think also it's partly that, but also it's a bit of a gateway then, isn't it? You know, if you've got access to it personally, then you're like, right, well, yeah, we've got Google and it doesn't have access to this, and fair enough, you know, there's Gemini and all those things, which is very good. But, you know, it becomes a gateway. It's the same thing. Why do Microsoft give students free licenses? It's the same thing. It's to get them using the Microsoft tooling and products so that they continue to want and use that. So, it's a gateway drug.
Yep.
Totally.
And I mean, I think that your point about if companies haven't got Copilot licenses deployed, there's a risk that their staff will take their stuff home and run it on their private machines, breaking governance and security in the process. But they will absolutely. I think that is a big lever to persuade companies to get on and fill the void. And we've seen this before. You know, this isn't the first technology where people go, well, they haven't given it to me at work, so I'm going to do it at home, including things like WhatsApp. You know, it's like, I'll go and create a WhatsApp group. So, you know, the people will fill the void with dark IT.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay. My last question is it's a lot associated with AI, but it's just something, thoughts. I noticed Microsoft just announced that the wonderful world of DeepSeek R1 is going to be available in Azure.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the weird thing there is, if it's available in Azure, which is effectively in my head, that's the fundamental baseline that everything M365 is built upon. Why is it not available in Copilot for end users? And therefore, theoretically, are Microsoft then basically saying, well, we trust DeepSeek because they're giving it access to the Azure backend?
There's a difference between the open source model and the DeepSeek service, because if you run the model locally,
Apparently, it's the R1 which has
Yeah,
been publicly
but it's
announced.
the model,
that's in
isn't it?
Azure.
Yeah,
It's the
because you
model.
can ask it about Tibet, whereas if you ask the public one about Tibet, it hastily backspaces over what it's just told you.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Azure's
this is
got,
the model as a service, isn't it? You know, and
Yeah.
I don't know how is it. There's
It's
only
just a weird
2,000
one,
models.
isn't it? It's just there's a lot of nerves going on about these new AI models because of the cost it's taken them to be produced. What was it, about $6 million or whatever it was for
Yeah.
DeepSeek or something like that? And yet, you know, OpenAI have spent billions and billions or whatever it is of dollars to get where they are. It's kind of like, whoa, hang on a minute. You're going to give something that was cheap and cheerful access to your Azure access sort of side thing versus something that wasn't.
okay,
Yeah.
well, first of all, as Simon was about to say, there are dozens and dozens of large language models
There is.
freely available to run on Azure. So it makes perfect sense that Microsoft would have added DeepSeek as well as a model. Yeah, there's security concerns. I would like to think that someone goes through the code base in these before they deploy them, but they are running in isolated instances, so they don't have the ability to interfere with your Azure operations. As to whether you can give it access to your content on Azure or elsewhere, I'll leave that to my technical friends to answer.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly could. You could certainly index that content, you know, into something like Azure AI search, and then let it reason over that content. But it's just reasoning over it. It's not executing code or sending it out back to DeepSeek in China. All the processing is still happening in Azure. All the boundaries within Azure are still kept.
You could run DeepSeek locally if you wanted to. You can download the model and just run it.
Yeah.
And it's no different to any of the other open source LLMs in that respect.
Yeah.
You know, you can, you know, whether you're running Llama or anything else, these are all tools that are available on Azure and you can spin up for your own purposes if you wish.
And I think it's a really good point as well, like learning because each of these models has their strengths and weaknesses, and understanding what those are is really good. Like I know that a lot of the MVPs are talking about GitHub Copilot on Claude being the better than GPT-4o. Don't know about O1 now, but you know, it seems really good at code, you know, generating code. Better than the other models.
4.5 will change a lot of things as well, because Claude 3.5 is good, very, very good for a lot of people, but ChatGPT 4.5 will turn the springs again, just like every other AI model out there. As soon as they do an update, they're learning from everything else that's in the world, and they'll make the updates to benefit whatever they've got. I mean, we've shown Copilot, and one thing that I love about Copilot more than I do about ChatGPT is, in its simplest form, is the way it looks. It's just smarter to look at on screen than ChatGPT, which just looks like somebody's gone mad with Visual Studio Code or whatever it is. It just looks in a similar sort of format in that way. But I mean, I love Visual Studio Coding anyhow, but for me, it's like, you have that sort of end user experience that it looks so much nicer with Copilot than if you add the same thing and they basically said, yeah, we'll just open AI GTP in there and it'll just look exactly the same as if you were logging into ChatGPT. People will be going, huh? What the hell is this about? And yeah, that's what it was, just a daft question about the DeepSeek thing. So there was nothing intentional.
I think it's a good one.
It's just an intriguing one. I thought, oh, that's in that Azure as well. And I didn't even know about some of the other models that you could get into Azure as well. So it was just a curious one. I saw the post come up the other day. I was thinking, oh, okay, I'm sure Mr. Trump will be pleased about that.
Yeah, it's called Azure Model as a Service is the capability.
Cool. But thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
No, right. Well, thank you very much for everyone giving us your time. Much appreciated. I hope you found it useful.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Cheers all. Take care.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
next
Bye.
month. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Cool. And then there were 3. That was pretty good, I thought. It'd always be nice if we had hundreds of people